Now, we're starting the show with some really sad news today. In the last couple of hours, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, has revealed that she suffered a miscarriage in July of this year.
Well, the tragic news was announced in an article for the New York Times, and in it, Meghan writes about the couple's unbearable grief. We're joined now by doctor and fertility expert, Dr Larisa Corda. Good morning, Larisa.
Hi, Larisa.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a little bit out from this. Meghan said, losing a child means carrying an almost unbearable grief, experienced by many but talked about by few. She wrote, I felt a sharp cramp. I dropped to the floor with him in my arms. She was holding Archie at the time, humming a lullaby to keep us both calm. The cheerful tune in stark contrast to my sense that something was not right. I knew, as I clutched my firstborn child, that I was losing my second. Hours later, I lay in a hospital bed holding my husband's hand. I felt the clamminess of his palm and kissed his knuckles, wet from both our tears. Staring at the cold white walls, my eyes glazed over. I tried to imagine how we'd heal. You can feel the pain in the words, but so brave to write about it.
So brave. I mean, first, my heart goes out to Meghan and Harry at this time, and for anyone who's experiencing this kind of loss. It is just the biggest grief that anyone can really face in life, and for them to come out in the open and speak about this, I just applaud them, because it takes so much courage to do that and to really stand exposed and vulnerable and, admit to what they've been facing and all the emotions that must be bringing up for them. And as Meghan writes so powerfully, saying that, she was holding her son at the same time she realised she was also miscarrying another life. And that for any mother is just so unbearably difficult that, I absolutely applaud them for writing about this in a similar vein to what Chrissy Teigen did recently as well, and the number of people that she also helped, her and John Legend, when they wrote about their experience and also losing their son. So I think that them coming out in the public eye and writing an article like this is going to help so many other people to realise that this is far more common than we think it is, and that actually no one is immune from miscarriage. It doesn't discriminate based on your culture, your gender, your race, your political inclination, your social standing. It can affect anyone, and it's incredibly common. So I really hope that as a result of this, we see that taboo and stigma removed and finally, get people to really discuss and open up about what they're experiencing.
Larisa, it was also said that during this pandemic and during lockdown that many women stayed at home to miscarry at home on their own because they were too scared to go into hospital for fear of contracting coronavirus or even for burdening the NHS with this. What should you do if you feel that's happening to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a worrying and confusing time for everyone because of the pandemic and the restrictions it's placed upon the medical care that we can provide. And certainly that was the case in the first wave, where we heard, and I think I spoke about it on the show, that lots of women were going through miscarriages on their own. So sometimes it is okay to stay at home if you're having a small amount of bleeding and some cramps, but quite often it's very necessary to go into hospital and to seek the help of a doctor, especially if you're having lots of cramps, lots of pain, lots of bleeding that's carrying on, that's not being controlled, where you're soaking quite a few pads in an hour. It's really, really important to go into hospital and make sure that, even if nothing is done at that particular point, that you're okay. And the other reason to go in is that we simply can't tell whether someone might have an ectopic pregnancy, especially early on when they don't necessarily have a scan. So it's important to exclude that. And that's women who might get some shoulder tip pain or really excruciating abdominal or tummy pain. You must go into hospital, into A&E if you're experiencing that. Don't hesitate and just get checked out. And then the doctor can talk to you about options if they do diagnose a miscarriage. But the most important thing is to get diagnosed first and make sure whether the pregnancy is actually in the womb or outside of it.
One in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. So I assume that you are hopeful now that this will go some way to lift the stigma. We've had interviews here, and I've never been able to understand, you know, the cruelty of nature being described as shame by a woman. But it's still a part of that label that some women put upon themselves. There is a stigma, there is a shame to having this happen to you. Hopefully this will, once again, you can't sort these things overnight, but another chip in that wall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you mentioned 1 in 4. If you're younger, it's slightly less than that. But actually, if you're 40 and over, you know, it's a 50% chance that you could miscarry. It's really quite significant. And the fact that it does affect both the man and woman, because we shouldn't forget the partner here as well. That's really, really important. And the fact that, you know, Harry will also be experiencing that grief with Meghan too. So, yes, I think that realizing that it is really common and realizing that opening up about it, seeking help, but also for anyone listening, if you've got a friend going through this, or you have anyone who you think might be pregnant or might be struggling to conceive, just to kind of reach out to them and ask, you know, are you okay? Can I be of help? How are you feeling? And that's something that Meghan's written about in her letter as well, just reaching out to people and asking them how they are and making provisions for them when they go back to work and they try to integrate back into normal life. Just being sensitive enough to really respect the fact that they may need a bit of time out for this and that it's okay to allow them. That's really, really important, and not to put any pressure on them
And
to
Larisa,
feel
I
a
think as
certain
well,
way.
what Meghan's done by speaking about this is turned it not necessarily into just a medical issue, because I think sometimes with miscarriage, people just see it as a medical thing that you go through and it's not really something to be discussed because it's not viable and it's not important, whereas actually, of course, it's an emotional issue. It's a life. It's part of you. It's part of your family. And it is going to have that impact on you. And because she is talking about this so openly, it allows other people to understand that and feel the same way, be allowed to grieve.
Exactly. It's a massive social issue, as you say, Holly. It's not just a medical issue. And it's affecting so many people who just don't have the courage to speak about it yet. So I do think this is going to change things. I really hope that it does. And I think that, you know, it's really important to understand that everyone will have a different response to grief, that it's okay if someone doesn't want to discuss it, but it's also equally okay if someone needs to take a significant amount of time to deal with it on their own or to talk to someone. I really encourage anyone who's experiencing this, not just to reach out to people in their close immediate circle who can help, but also a counsellor, you know, someone that they can actually discuss this grief with and help them to move on. And let's not forget, you know, with me being in fertility as well, so many couples struggle for such a long time to become pregnant, and then facing something like this can really set them back and be something that affects them for the rest of their lives. So dealing with it and being a part of that is opening up to other people, and feeling encouraged to do that is such an important move. So I really thank Meghan and Harry for doing this at a time that's incredibly sensitive and difficult for them.
Thank you,
Larisa, thank you. Thanks very much.
Our love to them and anyone who happens to be going through something similar to that today.